Good afternoon and welcome to Tetewathá, Partyline Talkshow. I'm your host, Luann Stacy, and today is MCK Friday, and I'm joined by Chief Gina Deer. Welcome to the show, Gina. How is everything going?
Great, and happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you so much. I guess it's been a very busy week, lots going on, and summertime, but it's still crazy and chaotic, is it not?
Yes, it is. This community is very active.
That's for sure. That's definitely the case.
I could compare our politics to the traffic.
Actually, you know what? Right now, I think that traffic comparison is a good one, because right now I feel bad for a lot of people. That's all I gotta say, and it's never
horrible,
ending.
right?
Never ending. I got stuck yesterday on 132 to cross, and I'm getting myself in a plan for 3 weeks to go up the mountain at the bottom. I live at the bottom of the clays, to go up the clays and go up the mountain just to go. So I make sure I'm never going to hit traffic, because at night it's still traffic. It doesn't matter what time of day. So I went up. Some truck, 18-wheeler, decided to go through. The light turned red. There was nowhere for the truck to go. I had to sit at the lights for 2 turns before the guy was able to move.
It's awful.
Yeah. So I can see the comparison very much, you know. So I guess you have, we'll talk about some of your portfolios. We'll give some updates, and I'm not sure where you'd like to start.
Sure. I'll go back to the closing ceremony for the murdered and missing women. I don't think I've been here since I've been to that event. And I have to say it was the most touching event I've been to since I've started, with MCK. The amount of individuals that were there from across the country for representing, their communities, their First Nations communities, it was incredible. People came in their regalia. They came in T-shirts with pictures of their missing loved ones or murdered loved ones, and the document that was handed over to Trudeau, it was very symbolic, because it was put on a cradle board and it was wrapped, and then it was presented to him. And it's a huge document with, over 200 recommendations, and specific recommendations for Quebec. There are, a lot of issues within Quebec province for Indigenous murdered and missing women. A lot of it stemmed around funding.
Really?
Yes. And there was a lot of talk of economic development, ironically.
Really?
Yes.
Were you surprised by that? I would
Actually, I was.
Okay.
I really was. I had been participating quite a bit in the beginning, with the issue, and the file had kind of got separated between myself and another chief. And so I hadn't been as involved. I wasn't aware, of the economic development component. So, yes, people need funding, and communities need to be able to grow, and they need to be in charge of their own, economic development, and decide what's best for their communities. And I think that's what's an important message. Another important message was that Indigenous people will decide who's Indigenous.
Yes.
Not Canada.
Yes.
And I thought that was a very powerful message that was delivered, all coming through, this inquiry. They've touched on so many other topics, not just, the fact that, the murdered and missing women files have not been handled to the best of the ability, is what they were saying. A lot of times, people wait too long. Families know, when my daughter, whoever doesn't call, I want to make a report, and they're, there's a waiting period, there's this, there's that.
But as a parent, right? Know as a parent. I'm not a parent, I'm an aunt, but I got those spider instincts. I know when something's not right. I know when something's wrong. I don't even need to be there. So I can imagine what a mom has if I have that kind of power. So,
and can you imagine the authorities not cooperating with you, not listening to you? I mean, it's heartbreaking. There's story after story like that, right? And then the follow-ups or lack of follow-ups. So it was extremely emotional. Being a mom who has lost a child, it was really difficult for me. There was a woman that happened to be sitting right in front of me who had an emotional breakdown, and there was support people walking around, because it was so emotional. There was many people identified with a T-shirt as a support person, and they came and they helped her. They held her, they brought her water. And I couldn't help it. I ended up crying, like, just because I know her pain.
You telling me I'm feeling like, you know, emotional.
I'm telling you, it was really incredible for me. It was really moving for me. So I was glad to be there. I was glad to witness it, because it is historical. And, for myself, I really hope that we do something with the results of this inquiry, because too often we see that these inquiries just,
go nowhere,
go on the shelf.
Yeah.
The recommendations, you're lucky if you get one or two implemented. I look back to, the Indigenous population within incarceration.
Yeah.
Many recommendations. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 penitentiaries actually, implemented some of those recommendations. We have the Jordan's principle and everything that's happened. There is some movement there, and I'm hoping for more movement here.
And I think when we're talking about the missing and murdered women, there are a lot of times where they don't even know. The numbers are high.
Yes.
But there's a lot of numbers that are unreported. And so over the years, people don't even know.
Yes. And it's disturbing at the rate, and it not just here, but in the U.S., it's also happening.
Yeah.
And again, going back to that economic development, I mean, I look at our community as opposed to a lot of the other communities and the resources we have here. And that's because we have the dollars, right?
Yeah.
Our location has something to do with it, but at the same time, we have always advocated to be in charge of our own social service, our own police force, our own hospital, all of these things, our own education. It's so important and so vital to the survival of, these Indigenous communities who are struggling with identity, with language, trying to regain all that. And, the result, is people leaving the community looking for that better life, and then, having
Getting
to turn
swept up.
to something else.
Yeah.
So it's really important, the UN Declaration, we always talk about the rights of Indigenous people and the right to economic development. For me, that's why I work on economic development and revenue generating projects. I think it's vital to bring monies to the community so that it reaches the everyday person and they can flourish themselves. I've been through some of the systems, like going back to school, adult education, training and retraining. I started out in secretarial, and then I went on to policing, and I'm still looking at courses like, what will I do later on?
My late dad used to say, you're graduating again. Well, what exactly are you going to be? I said, Dad, when I find out, I will let you know. And, he's passed away 10 years already. And I laugh because I'm still going to try taking courses. I'm going to try something different, because that's what life is. It's not like a 30, 40 year career and that's it. The
Yes.
job market, everything's changed, and you need to push yourself. And if it's one course, and I'm laughing because I did take secretarial, and I did take, and I laugh because all of those things provided me tools that helped me as a manager, as a director,
Right.
as an executive director, even in my jobs and my volunteer as board members, et cetera, you use a lot of those things. So you're 100% correct in terms of providing the everyday person with all the opportunities that they can get. Because I know from working at the Native Women's Shelter, when I work there, I mean, they have wonderful programs, lots of supports, but sometimes you even lose some of those people.
Yes.
And some of our own women were some of the ones they would find, or would go missing and never found. And kudos off to the work that's done there, because it helps, but there's still a
Absolutely.
lot that get missed. So it's a very, very rough topic.
Well, it really prompted me to think hard on, where we're headed as a community. And again, I like to work on these projects where economic development is essential. I know there's been some criticism for the fact that, council's getting involved in business. But, I look at what we have done over time, and Mohawk Online is one of, the examples. And they're doing very well. Monies are coming back to the community, and they're reaching the everyday person. And that's what's important for me. I've recently said it at council in one of the meetings. We're doing a lot of restructuring and portfolio allocation. Everything has changed, right? We've been working on governance and policy, and there's dollars attached to that. And for myself, I am in full agreement in getting, our house in order, but at the same time, I find I'm not involved the way I should be with everyday community issues. It's taking quite some time for us to get the restructuring in place. So we finally passed some mandates, this past Monday, and economic development was one of them. So I'm excited about that, and I'd like to see us get rolling in things now,
It's time, right?
It really is time, For me, it's essential that what I do helps the community as a whole. I know the organization needs its help, but at the same time.
Okay, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tetewathá, Partyline Talk Show. I'm your host, Len Stacy, and today's MCK Friday, and I'm joined by Chief Gina Deer. And for the first part, we were talking about an event that she went to on the missing and murdered women, and you come to realize how important that topic is. And since we're on the topic of women, let's talk about the Lori, I can't say her mom.
You ready?
Yeah, award this year, and it was quite an enlightening experience for Miss Erica McCumber.
Yes, it was. I saw her speechless, and that's rare.
I think you and half the town, she had gone to the Kahnawake Survival School graduation the next day. And of course, I'm in the front. My nephew's graduating, and she was having such a hard time. But I think one of the things that was the most profound in her speech was that everything she does comes from the heart. And you can't beat that.
No, you can't. And it's fabulous. I mean, the recipients, it's really hard to choose recipients, and
because there's great people.
Yes, there really are. And for myself, it's very important to acknowledge what people are doing while they're here.
Yeah.
And when Lori passed, I had learned, about everything she had done for community, and I was just amazed and in awe that she spent really her lifetime committed to serving and helping community.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate, that it's someone's passing that you learn all these sort of things, but that's kind of the way it's been,
but
right?
But that was her because she didn't want people to know.
Yeah.
That was by her choice. She was a very behind the scenes person. I know because I worked on a lot of things with her, and that was her way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like that,
There is, but at the same time, it's nice to be acknowledged because we saw from, the recipients that, we've had, it's our third year, they don't do it for recognition.
No.
But it's really appreciated, and they need to know how appreciated what they're doing, is by community.
Absolutely.
And for myself, I think it's really important. I mean, as an employer, I try to give encouragement to my employees. I thank them all the time for anything extra that they will do. I don't see myself as the boss over them because honestly, like in my employer role, I'll grab the mop and the broom and I'll clean the floor or do whatever has to be done.
Absolutely,
along with them. So when I look at what we can do to acknowledge community members, and Lori was like the shining example of giving back to community in different ways, because we didn't want to have an award where it was just kind of isolated to a select few. We wanted to make it open, right? And I think that's what's important, is we let people know that this is really an open-ended award. If you're giving back in some way to community, you can be nominated. If you're learning the language, because a lot of people thought, oh, well, you had to be in the language program. No, you don't. There's a very broad spectrum, I guess, for this award. And we wanted to make sure that, people are aware. We didn't get as much, inquiries this time around.
Right.
So we'll have to do more promoting next year to ensure that, we get a good pool of candidates, though it's hard to select.
I have to tell you, I wouldn't want to be on a selecting thing because I know we have a lot of great people out there.
Yeah.
A lot, and I think that's what's important.
Well, with Erica, she's all over the place.
We know that. The kids at graduation at survival school knew Erica, let me tell you.
And it's excellent because, anybody who asks her to help in any capacity, like she's not just helping in baseball or hockey, she's everywhere. Golden Age. I've seen her on the school bus, helping monitoring, and it takes a special person to do those things.
Oh, it does.
And she really is a special person. And I loved it because I saw how emotional she became.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I saw her speechless, and it was beautiful to see like her family there supporting her, and Lori's family there, which is really important. They participate, and along with, the members of our group who've, sponsored this. So... yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and like I said, it carried over the next day, and she goes, I have been so overwhelmed with messages and people coming up to me, and that's just not her, so
right?
she wasn't taking to it well, but I thought it was so funny because I work with her for the 2 lacrosse teams, and she's involved in lacrosse. We got her on the President's Cup committee. We knew we were going to do that, but it's really interesting because she just doesn't like the attention, It's like, she just does, and she's happy with being all over. So kudos to Erica.
Yeah. For sure.
You have other.
Yes.
I see a list, so we'll.
I'm actually here on a last minute thing, because we have the MCK staff picnic today, right? So everybody's kind of doing something, and some of the chiefs are cooking, and I have an actual meeting at noon, and that's why we're doing this pre-recording, right? Yeah. So I said, okay, let me fit it in, but what am I talking about? And then I tried to list it. One of the other things is the Jowadodu policy that has been, put out on the website. There's the cabin construction ownership and different issues that have been posted, with the new policy. The new policy had been much larger, and we tried to break it down. It's very hard to pass something that large when you can't really enforce or implement all of the things that were listed in there. Coming later on, we're going to need those things because the way the community is growing in Jowadodu.
Yeah.
But right now, I think, the development and cabin construction issues are essential. We have applications that have been, waiting to pass. We're hoping people will give comment now, because what happens a lot is people will only after it's passed give comment or say that, they're not in agreement with certain things or all of it, So I think it's essential that people have a look at it. We do try and host meetings up there. We have been on a hiatus for the committee. At that level, we all know that there is a court action between Kahnawake and Kahnawake, and that's the reason why, we haven't been moving forward right now. We are in discussion and trying to come to, I guess, an agreement between Kahnawake and Kahnawake over the outstanding issues, primarily preserving and maintaining the 104 acres that is, vulnerable right now, because of a class action suit, I guess, or not a class action, but an action against Kahnawake.
So I take it that hasn't been worked out yet.
It hasn't been worked out, yeah. But we're trying to ensure that, Kahnawake residents know that, the dispute between the two councils has nothing to do with community members. We don't want to try and limit or in any way change the capacity for them to enjoy the territory, but there are some serious outstanding issues. Again, the 104 acres, we don't ever want to lose land. We've lost enough. We've been trying to come to some kind of agreement around that. And there's the outstanding monies, and the monies are really not the priority. It's the land. So again, there's been a little bit of talk between the two. It hasn't ended, but it hasn't been often.
Okay.
So just to reassure people, we're going to maintain the territory. We're going to continue to pay as we have and try and, have the best, I guess, interest of both communities when it comes to Jorodo.
So with this report, what is going to happen? What are people being asked to do?
Well, there's a 30-day community review that's being posted. And if they could go online at Kahnawake.com and look at it and give some feedback around it. There's issues with cabin construction, as we've seen in the past. There's issues around landfilling, and there's I guess requirements that are needed to build a cabin up there. And filling has been an issue in the past. We've had some soil that has been bad that was brought in, and they had to take it out. So the sand pit had been closed, and we're hoping people will find spots that don't need any kind of filling, and that's why they're trying to, I guess, not exactly make lots, but map out areas and say, this area, this is your footage, and respect where your cabin should be located and the clearing around the cabin, different things like that.
Plus, there's also very valuable medicines and things that are all over there. So, I mean, that also needs to be considered as well.
Well, Mikey
Trees,
is one of the caretakers who's well aware of the medicines and has offered to go on walks with people, and take them around and look at what's there and teach them. We had an incident where I guess some ATV riders had gone over some medicines, and one of the community members had made a complaint saying, didn't they know what was there? And in actuality, they didn't.
No.
So it's really appreciated that Mikey would take the time to do that and show them. Again, the caretakers are there as caretakers, but not necessarily security, but they end up doing that role.
Both.
Yeah. And there's a lot of issues around the ATVs, not just in Kahnawake, but in Jorodo, right? And a lot of the attitude was, well, if you can't ride here, go ride up there. But there's not really any place to ride specifically up there. I would like to see a trail provided so that they're off the main road, and it would alleviate the dust and the complaints from community members that live along that road, right?
Absolutely.
I want to be able to provide the kids with, something an alternative to doing that.
Instead of saying, no, just don't do it.
Right, and
Correct,
cutting everybody off. Yeah,
absolutely. Welcome back to Tetewathá. If you're just joining us, today is MCK Friday, and I am joined by Chief Gina Deer, and we're talking about the report. It's a report, correct?
It's a 30-day review of the cabin ownership procedure document that was created.
I don't know the exact, because I know it was long. I had looked it up this morning just to be prepared.
It's 27 pages long. I mean, it's not that long. Like I said, we have actually broken it down a bit.
But I think if people have an opportunity, here's a chance to take a look at it and look at the sections that are important to you. The people who are the users are the ones who could make the best evaluation or comments on the document. I know people don't like the organization or like the rules or like those kind of things. Well, it's been free for all these years. I'm going to do what I want to do. That kind of thinking.
Yes.
And as our community is growing and more people use up there, it gets harder and harder to maintain something,
Well, the incidents that have gone on up there, right, is what's concerning.
Yeah.
We have had... Actually, we had domestic violence, child endangerment. There's been some unfortunate passings of people up there. So, like I said, the population has really grown up there, and we have to try and ensure that, it's safe for everybody, and we have things in place to protect people. At the same time, allowing them some of the freedoms that they're used to. What people need to understand, though, it's a growing community, and it's not going to revert back to what it used to be, because I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And the reality is we need to look at what's ahead of us instead of what's behind us, because it makes it very difficult when people want to, nope, I don't want to allow this, I don't want to allow that, we never had this, we never had that. Well, it's developed, right, like anything else. And as time goes on, it's going to continue to develop. We want to try and keep it and maintain it with the minimal footprint, is what people say.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, the land was given to us to utilize, so let's utilize it,
Yeah.
but respectfully, right?
Plus, you have to look at areas for hunting. You have to look for there's a lot of people fish up there. A lot of people,
Yes.
So there are a lot of people who are using it for sustenance
Yes.
and maintaining their livelihood. So those are all issues as well.
Absolutely. And there's quite a bit of money is involved to maintaining the territory, with the caretakers and the new cabin, which should be ready. I'm told the final inspection is going to be today, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, that'll be open to community to go and see. I believe there's going to be an open house that's going to be scheduled. So it's really exciting. I mean, things have really come along. And again, it's development, right?
Absolutely. And like I said, with more and more people going up there, as a child, if you remember going there, then your goal is to have a cabin so your kids will know it. So keep thinking how many times that has happened in how many generations. And now we're 4 and 5 generations deep in families. So, of course, that's going to happen,
Yeah, and change does not come easy for people.
No.
As much as people say they want change, they have a difficult time with it.
Absolutely. So they're just going to remember that they went up and they could do what they want to do, where they wanted to do, when they wanted to do. And that's a large part of it. But at the same time, you have to respect your neighbors. You have to respect the territory, and the land, and keeping it.
And safety is first and foremost.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we got
Change
that one.
gears.
Next.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit more about Mohawk Online and some of the things that have happened recently. There was an announcement made that Mohawk Online, his earnings had been reported at $1.87 million. And, the monies have gone back into the community. We've had some donations that have been given out. Onage, Ready Rainier, that's a Mohawk Immersion Program. The St. Francis Xavier Mission, that was the restoration of some of the paintings. They had funded some of that. The Cattery Memorial Foundation, they had the Christmas tree. That was, an amazing trip to Vegas with hockey tickets. You name it.
I tried winning it.
that was fabulous. All the trees are fabulous. It's an incredible event. It's grown outside the community. We saw CBC who did the piece on it, and I had volunteered selling some of the tickets.
I said, I'm going to go at this time because it probably wouldn't be packed, and I ended up going 3 times with 3 different people, and every time I went, it was packed.
It's great. I know they do the same thing in Aguasasne, and it brings in so much revenue, and it's a great thing to do right before Christmas, right? Yeah. Anybody who wins anything,
I won one of the trees.
Did you?
And I'm still reaping the benefits of it. And it was, we won the JFK tree. And
awesome.
My nephew was so happy, got one of those ride on 4-wheel drive things. And he was the happiest kid in the whole wide world. And he's still using, even though he's much bigger, but his younger brother and sister. So we're still using things from the tree. So you couldn't beat that, we were happy. It was great,
Yeah.
And I had they were my guest actually, Lois Montour, about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how that one fundraiser for Gudunyasta's memory turns into repaying back into the community through doing the CPR courses for people, for doing the end of the month. Today's the last day, and I will mention it, for the bursaries and for the people in the healthcare. That's today. Today's the deadline.
Okay.
So that money just keeps rolling into the community with community members and students being the benefactors.
That's excellent.
That's a really great idea.
It is definitely. And the Cattery Memorial Hospital Foundation golf tournament that they just hosted. Mohawk Online supplied, the trip that was won. A fabulous trip.
Fabulous, yes.
Yes. Italy, Greece.
I would have liked to have won that one.
Another, fantastic trip. We're definitely learning to do these things right when it comes to fundraising.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that has recently happened with Mohawk Online is they have struck some marketing deals with 4 CFL teams. And the teams are Ottawa Red Black, Edmonton Eskimos, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Hamilton Tiger Cats. So we're getting out there. We're getting the brand out there. And it's really exciting. Again, we lack recognition for what we do in gaming with our local governments of Quebec and the federal level. They don't want to acknowledge that. But on a bigger stage out there in the world, we're working with other jurisdictions, and here, locally, we're still struggling to even meet on this issue, right?
Yeah.
And now that these teams are, participating with us, it's a sense of recognition now, right? And I think turning the page, and if we go back to what I had said earlier about economic development and what was talked about at the Murdered and Missing Women closing ceremonies, telling Trudeau, he was sitting there saying, you have to allow us, to have economic development.
Yeah.
And this is another example for 20 years in the making of, us participating in the gaming industry and the government just trying to, call us illegal and then not even acknowledge us later on. Well, that's another step. Well, at least they're not calling us illegal anymore, but they're not acknowledging our right to it either.
No.
But I guess we could say some progress. We've had Lotto Quebec come to Kahnawake and the Minister of Finance, so there's another step. We're crawling along, I guess you could say. But I mean, it's a conversation that needs to be had, right? And now that we have the electronic gaming devices, Quebec is kind of taking notice now and saying, well, we're like competition, right?
Right.
So it changes again, and there's a lot of...
But if you think of any of the economic development driving pieces, it's always in competition with the government because of taxes, because of that.
Exactly.
Whether it was cigarettes, alcohol, we'll talk cannabis, we'll talk the gaming, anything that's going to be a profit or that we can start to benefit from, they're not going to be open to it at all.
Well, they are not historically, but I think the pressure for the reconciliation has made a little bit of change, right?
Yeah.
Because they're willing to discuss with us on cannabis and distribution. They, for the most part, like our law that we've put forward. We had the age of 21, as acceptable for retail in our community. And then Quebec, the new government came out and said, 21 is one of the ages that they're looking at. Yeah. So for myself, we have to coexist, right? Why are we not trying to dialogue so that, maybe we're not going to have 100% satisfaction, but at least be able to understand and come to some kind of terms around, this competition.
Yeah.
In my view, it's not really competition. We're just taking back.
Yeah, really.
Honestly.
And survival for us.
Yes.
I think sometimes, and you have to take that step back, is that when you look at some of these things, if we didn't fight for all of the things we had, where would we be?
Absolutely.
We did not get anything in this community by just being here. All the leaders before us, doesn't matter what sector people came from, there's been a battle or a fight.
Yeah.
It was, tooth and nail.
And that will continue.
Of course.
I don't see things being resolved anytime soon, but just the thought that we can actually sit down with certain individuals that we never have before is a start for me. No matter how slow progress is, as long as there's some sort of progress, that's important. It's what keeps me here, what keeps me motivated, right? I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not somebody who can just sit back and push paper. I don't accept status quo, and I'm highly criticized for that, actually.
Really?
Yes, because I promote too much change sometimes, in some ways. I've been accused of, trying to get people fired, and I'm like, I absolutely never am looking to get somebody fired, but I do want people to be accountable. I do want reviews of, systems that have been in place for 15, 20 years. I'm not a fan of just because it's always been done that way, we're going to continue. So when I ask somebody to review things or come into a department that I'm working with and say we need a review, people get threatened by that. And it's not at anyone specific. It's just that things are evolving. There are different ways of doing things. And it's like educating yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Like we're talking about going back to school as an individual. Well, it's the same thing here. There's new learning tools. There's new ways of doing things more efficiently. And that's what I'm trying to promote. School is really important. Advancing is really important. You know, I just had 4 of my family members who graduated, my son and my granddaughter from grade 6 who are heading off to high school. And I'm always promoting education. 2 of my daughters, you know, also graduated. One in the LPN nursing program, and the other one as a daycare educator. So I'm glad that they're getting out there. You know, they're doing different things. It's really important. And I transition that into my work, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at what I'm doing. What can we do to improve? And it's not to target anything, anyone. It's just for the advancement.
Okay. On that note, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tetewathá, Partyline Talk Show. I'm your host, Lance Stacy, and today is MCK Friday, and I'm joined by Chief Gina Deer. I think what you're saying has so much merit that we have to relook at how we're doing things in the community, and how do we work together, and how do the pieces fit other pieces.
Yes.
You know, with economic development, we also have a lot of social issues that need to get addressed. How do we work together so that we're working on doing that at the same time, looking at language and culture, and how do we ensure that our community members are in a good place? Because
Absolutely.
with that is the healing. That's how we get through a lot of these. And we have a lot of things to take care of, you know?
Absolutely. You know, the healing is really important, and that's going to take many generations, right?
Absolutely.
We look at what has happened over time, and it's probably going to be even longer to repair what has been done.
Oh, yes.
So for myself, always advancing, you know, for the territory is really important. As recently as last night, I went to an event in Val David, and it was a multicultural event that I had attended to, and it was something that the Laurentian district puts on, these festivities celebrating multiculturalism. So we were invited, and I really didn't know what to expect because the invitation was kind of vague. Mm-hmm. But when I got there, I wish I had been more aware of how it was going to play out. And I guess it's something new for them, so they weren't 100% sure how it was going to go. But what had happened was when I got there, they had different ethnicities from all over the world. There was Peru, there was Russia, there was Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just, it was
big.
fabulous. Yeah. And they brought food from, you know, their native foods, and people were allowed to try, and everything was free. Like there was no cost to it. There was performances that were done. So I would have preferred to have a table and have some of our traditional food.
Absolutely.
You know, but I wasn't really aware of how this was going to go. And it was really, I guess, enlightening for me, you know, to talk with some of the people and where they come from, what some of their traditions are. So really great experience. Community members could have been made aware and participated if they wanted, you know. So I think next year when they host it, we'll be better prepared, better informed, and then we can get that out there.
Wow, talk about a different event.
Yes, honestly, and it's nice to be invited to something that's more positive, because a lot of the stuff we've been working on, you know, is contentious, and especially with the MRC, you know, with the logging and the issues surrounding the MRC. So this was something really, really positive. The relationship that we have with the surrounding community has really improved to the point where, you know, the St. Lucie Library wanted to have a designated area to the Mohawk and Iroquois.
Wow.
Yeah, and have some information available. So they had requested, you know, from council, would they object? And we said absolutely not. You know, education is essential.
Absolutely.
And again, getting back to the recommendations for the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, it was recommended, you know, education. They need to educate in the proper manner, on the history.
Not just the history books
Exactly.
say of things. And it's really interesting because I guess when you're looking around the whole province, there's movements.
Yes.
It's not the way it was 25, 30 years ago. It is getting better. There is education, but we still have to work at it. This is
Absolutely.
not going to be a one-shot, one event that's going to change things. We have to continue
Yes.
to work at it.
Well, what's happened is it's going, I guess, by each community, right? They're making steps to ensure that, they're looking at what they can do for reconciliation.
Yeah.
And I have to say, St. Lucie, MRC, they're really making, strides to include us. The recognition that we are there, because at, a provincial and federal level, they don't view it as our traditional territory.
No.
So we're not consulted the way that we should be because we are there.
Yeah.
Whether you say it's our traditional territory or not, we are there. So that's another fight we have, and just getting them to admit that they have a duty to consult has not been easy.
No.
So yeah, it's the recognition. It's coming, community by community, and advancements being made. We look at the streets that were recently named. One in Lachine, a new street, and then Amherst being renamed. So I mean, it's exciting.
Significant moves,
yes.
right?
Yep, absolutely. It's been exciting times. As I said, I've had some graduates in my family, and their opening ceremonies acknowledge, the Mohawk territory that they're on. So there is a big change in that aspect.
The universities, the
Yes.
bigger universities with that. I mean, it's amazing.
Right.
It wasn't like that when I went to Concordia or graduated, it wasn't that bad, I have to say, but it was the department I was in. But the things that they're doing, and, I've been able to do some bridging and have some of them come on the show here. And it's really steps forward.
Yes. I mean, having our flag at, the
McGill.
University of,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's changing. And it's, like I said, it may be slow, but it's progress.
Absolutely. Anything else that you have? We have a few more minutes.
Well, I guess the only other thing is, the portfolio allocations. I'll get back to that. A lot of people have asked me, about gaming, and I'm no longer, the gaming port chief, and they were kind of surprised, and I'm no longer on, the public safety.
Right.
And, we were trying something new in the way of teams this time around, and it was I guess an issue for me to work on Mohawk online as well as the regulatory side, and it was like a perceived conflict, I was told. So I've taken a step back, and it was a difficult decision, but a little bit of change, again, it was just assumed that I would go into public safety
Right.
coming out of policing, and it was assumed I would just stay, at the gaming commission. But the economic development, the revenue generation, and those things are very important to me, right, in primary. So yes, public safety, my heart was there.
Right.
But again, I always promote change, growth, and that's part of, what I'm doing on these new files.
And let me ask you, how do you like the new team approach? Do you find it a little bit, you're in the process of transitioning to it, and you've done where chiefs just went to different areas?
Yes, I'm being open to it.
Yeah.
I do have my reservations, some concerns about it, but we're doing a 6-month review, right? We were advocating for some change, and I think for myself and a couple of other chiefs that I talked to, the change went in a little bit of a different direction than we had
Originally
hoped
thought.
for. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I can't shoot it down. I have to give it a chance. We just passed the mandate for economic development, and we're going to get rolling. And after the 6 months, I'm going to come back, and I will definitely give
answer
you my
that question.
Oh, yes.
I guess because I've spoken to some of the chiefs who come on and give their update, and for some of them, they thought it worked really well, but those are chiefs who haven't worked any other the other way.
Exactly.
Then I also had Chief Lindsay Laborn, who has actually worked in both, but had a long time off. So he said coming into this new thing, and he said it wasn't really that bad. So, I just wanted to know, is it something? And you have to have some belief that in doing this changes, that it's these kinds of changes are also going to impact the community down the road as well.
Well, it already is, because some of the feedback that I got was that people want to be able to go to their port chief and, know that things are going to be handled. And they're like, well, what does it mean now with these teams, and how fast are things going to get done now? Because now you have to pull all these people in. And actually, we have had trouble, setting up meetings.
Yes.
And we're almost a year into this term, and, not everything has been finalized. So there's going to be some challenges in that.
Yeah.
And the whole restructuring and this new allocation has been for efficiency purposes, right? Some things have been coming at the table that shouldn't be there, and we were trying to weed it out. Granted, we needed some change. We'll see how well this one is working.
Yeah, no, to being honest. And like I said, you have to try, because progress is progress, whichever way you have to do it. You
Right.
can't stay in the past or done, because we won't get where we need to go. There are goals. The community has vision, community has goals, and that's what we're supposed to be achieving.
Absolutely.
Wow. No, I'm on a roll today. I don't know what's wrong philosophically, but oh, wow.
Well, when you're a year older, you're a year wiser, they say.
I guess that could be. I would say that's quite possible. I'm not 100% sure on that. Anything else, Gina?
No, that's pretty much it for what I've been doing. Again, like I said, we just passed the Dewa mandate. Sorry, that's another thing we're working on. The Dewa Dunitsakta new mandate.
Yes.
We're looking to pass that by the end of the summer, I think. I think it's really important. This is something else where change has come in, and it's going to be positive for community. So, yeah.
Lots of good things coming.
Lots of good things coming.
All right. Thank you so much, Chief Gina Deer, for joining me for this hour.